Welcome to Coffee Table Talk. This is your host, Lisa Tomey. I want to thank Living Poetry for this platform and for being a most significant part of my writing life. I am honored that they have asked me to be one of their organizers. Living Poetry is the largest poetry group in the Triad and has reached even other countries, especially with the pandemic. As we talk about living poetry, this is one of several poetry groups, and that will be our topic for tonight. Thank you all so much for coming. On our panel are Susan Brearley. You want to wave, Susan, so we see who you are. Barbara Truncellito and Jill Sharon Kimmelman. I met Susan via Medium, her humor publication on medium.com. Susan Brearley is editor-in-chief of Medium, Contemplate Into the Summit. As a 20-time Medium top writer, she has been writing comedy since age 3, and she's the founder of the Garden of Nero. Barbara and I met via Arlene Weiss. She has published 4 collections of poetry: In Fragile Twilight, Beyond the 7-Point Setup, Moonflowers, and In Tribes of Running Rain. She holds a BA in English and MS in Management. She has also contributed to anthologies, including What It Is to Be a Woman, and that anthology we were both in. I met Jill through Annette Tarpley's The Passion of Poetry group on Facebook. Jill Sharon Kimmelman was nominated for a Pushcart Prize in Poetry and Best of the Net 2018. Her poetry has appeared in several publications. Jill is an amazing story poet and a mentor to a young poet from Nigeria. And with this affiliation, I've also become a part of this young poet's works through editing and publication. So starting with Susan Brearley, I would like to ask about Garden of Nero. What exactly is the Garden of Nero?
I'm so happy that you asked about that. So Garden of Nero, and it's spelled Neuro, as in neuroscience. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of neuroscience. I'm a fan of having a brain and not afraid to use it. And this is a space that, and a business, and kind of my magnum opus for this last phase of my life. I consider this the project that's going to take me from here in my 60s to my death. And hopefully, if I do this right, it will be a legacy project. And I've been working on it for 5 years, and now it's live. It's on a platform, it's on a technology platform, but I'm not sure it'll stay there. But the big idea is that we are building the largest women's network on the planet, with the intention to touch as many women's lives as we can. And our tagline is wisdom seekers meet wisdom keepers. So as you can imagine, the core group as it stands right now, it's a little over 200 right now, is a good blend of artisans. And we have writers and we have poets, and of course isn't that the way it is? Aren't the writers and the poets always the trailblazers? But I just looked around, across what's happening on the planet and said, what can be my contribution? How can I best use the business skills, the writing skills, all the things that all the experiences that I've had in my life up until this point, and be able to make a difference? And I see the need for women and women mentoring, women coaching, women sharing their wisdom with the generations that are following. I see a big need there. And so we have in that first group of women, not only do we have these artisans, but we also have women from 19 to 90 and across all the continents. So I'm very happy that this first group is inclusive, it is broad ranging, it speaks to every woman's soul And yeah, that's it. It's called the Garden of Nero. You can Google it. It's easy, but I can also send invitations. There's an invitation link, but it's really easy to get into. The front door is always open. Just the same way you have coffee table talks, we have what we call kitchen table talks. And these are structured conversations on specific topics, and they happen every Friday morning. We have also a huge poetry circle. And Lisa has been kind enough to be dropping poetry prompts all this month for National Poetry Month. So I thank you for that, Lisa.
My pleasure.
So what else would you like to know?
Well, one of the things that I know, I haven't been a member very long, and I first started kind of creeping around in it and just seeing what everybody was doing, because I kind of budget my time very tightly, and so before I invest in something, I want to make sure it's something I really want to spend my time at. I quickly got drawn in, and I mean, I'd say sucked in, but I got drawn in to so many eye-opening things in the group. And some of the things that stood out to me were the awareness of, like we're talking about, in the indigenous groups, and understanding more about the language that we use when we are, talking in general, how sometimes the things that we say, we innocently do it, but because we've been conditioned to talk a certain way in society, that may not be the proper terms to use. And so I learned a lot about that. We talk a lot about women's rights, feminism, and then of course there's also a lot of writing groups in there. Susan, can you talk a little more about what you do with the writing groups?
Sure, yeah, and it's interesting that you bring up the indigenous. So in my college studies, I am in a program for global indigenous knowledge, and this is a deep dive into the difference between and the distinctions between Western knowledge systems and indigenous knowledge systems, and the way our lives and our practices happen in our life are very different. That doesn't mean that necessarily one is stronger or more powerful or more right than another. And so this is a topic that's very dear to my heart. And so we do have topics in the garden. We have all our posts. So think about like how Facebook works and how frustrating Facebook is. And we're building a space that is not that. We're building a space that is very rich in the things we post, that we can find them easily. So there's searches in there, so you can go back and say, oh, somebody posted a TED Talk about something, and you can go in and you can search for a TED Talk that was your favorite TED Talk. So we're organized in topics, circles, and courses. The topics include writing and journaling and poetry and TED Talks and motivational things, not spiritual things so much, of course, but spirit does come up because we have spirit in us. So you can't really, nor would you want to divorce spirit from your activities. And then the circles, where there's a writer's circle, there's a poetry circle, there's a journaling junket. It's called a journaling junket for people who are big journals. There are courses, there are simple courses in creative journaling, kind of deep dives into journaling. There's going to shortly be a course here for blogging, and specifically Medium or any platform where people blog. We just released a course called Time and Energy Awareness, which is very different from the traditional time management. So there's two courses, a basic course and an advanced course. And then we encourage the members to get engaged and as ambassadors. So let's say you're on Facebook and then you have 2 friends that come in. Facebook isn't paying you or doing anything to reward you for bringing all your friends to Facebook. They're happy to have them there because they're kind of an exploitive technology which mines people. This is quite different. This is something that is a collective and it's shared space. Our number 1 rule in the space is respect the space. However you define the space, respect the space. So if your space is your body, respect the space, right? If that's always the number 1 rule, no matter how you walk in the world, you're going to have a different view of things and you become an ambassador. So we call our members, when they invite 2 people in, they become a bronze ambassador. When they invite 10 friends in, they become a silver ambassador. And when they have 25 guests who have come in at their invitation, they become a gold ambassador. And those gold ambassadors get perks. Things like the ability to create their own course in the space, and we help them do that. And then that means they can also monetize whatever their skill or talent is that they want to build a course in, and we help them with that. And so that's another rule of the space is to promote women's agency. So there'll be maybe women who come to the space who are aspiring poets or aspiring writers, and they get to kind of snuggle up next to published authors and people who have already had success and have already kind of blazed the trail ahead of them, and they can learn and they can ask questions and they can dig into whatever topic. But yeah, we have a big project going on right now that is locating every women's network in the world, and we're using it, but we're asking and we're inviting anyone who wants to participate, but we're inviting our membership to participate in that. We haven't announced it yet, but we've already started the project. And then we will have a visual representation of all the women's networks in the world and how we touch them and how they touch each other. And it's a big, bold project, but it's already started, and it's terrific. We do book clubs too, and we this year are inviting book authors to come and be part of the book club conversations. In fact, on the 28th, we have Amanda Owen, who wrote The Power of Receiving, and she is coming to visit us. And just today invited Dr. Edith Agar. I don't know if you know her. She wrote a book called The Gift. I just today invited her to come and be part of one of our book clubs. There's no holds here. They can only say no. I'm gonna invite Michelle Obama. I'm gonna invite Chimamanda, who's one of my favorite storytellers. I'm gonna invite them all. They can only say no. And eventually we get big enough, they'll say yes.
Yeah, and there might even be some people in this group here that have a book that they would share for the book club. I happen to know somebody.
Yay.
I'm not naming any names or anything.
Haven't
But thank you, Susan. Does anybody have any questions for Susan about the Garden of Nero?
Susan, how does one go about joining initially? And then, of course, I understand as far as inviting friends and guests, but how does one initially join? Because I'm already hooked.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that.
You had me at hello.
Jill, I sent you the link already, so just go click on it.
Lisa's got a link.
Thank you very much.
I put one in chat.
Yeah, Lisa's got a personal invitation link, and once you're in the garden, you have your own invitation link that you use so that you get credit. Eventually, we're going to have our own currency in the garden, and the currency is going to be called the Neuro. So you can do things inside the garden to earn neuros, and once you have so many neuros, you can cash them in for courses, you can cash them in for discounts, you can purchase journals, new journals, it's just going to be this whole women's economy inside the garden.
It's fascinating.
I wanted to design it also in a way that it was not prohibitive for women who are at different stages of their life, right? There's women who have no financial or very little financial support, or their financial support comes not from their own industry, but it comes from outside of them. And so I wanted this to not in any way be prohibitive, based on socioeconomic or geographic or any of that. So I wanted to, so we've designed it that way, and it's a wonderful space. So yes, that's just see, Lisa will hand you an invitation.
Okay.
Yeah, there happens to be a link in chat.
Thank you so much for answering that.
I have been doing the poetry circle for a while, and it looks like I'm going to be taking it over in May. But they do, we have been having the open mics, although I never can seem to get to an open mic. But there are open mics, and once a week, isn't it? But we've been floating around different days of the week. And
When you take that over, Lisa, you can schedule that at your convenience and for whatever makes sense for the membership. Yeah.
okay. And but in the poetry circle, I try to keep people up on what's happening out there. And if I find out about a resource in that, like the summer camp that I posted about, and different things. So that gives you another resource you can depend on, because we tend to drill down to the facts, because I don't like putting stuff out there that ends up being somebody trying to take your money. I'm all about finding the best resource that's affordable, because so many of us are on tight budgets. And plus, I just don't believe in spending crazy amounts of money when we don't have to.
So yes, and that's very important. So there's a huge amount of resource sharing that happens in the garden, and from all aspects of life that you can imagine. We've got photographers and filmmakers and just a tremendous creative force in there, but also people who are in the business world. And so it's just a really nice blend. Eventually, the idea that we'll invite men eventually, but in the beginning, we wanted it to be we wanted it to be women, because I really felt strongly that the greatest need is there. So.
How long have you been in existence? How long has the garden been around?
So we literally, the technology kind of serendipitously fell into my lap in October of last year, even though I had been architecting the design for the business design since probably 5 years ago. Although 5 years ago, I did not know what it would look like. And I'm not, we don't know, we can't predict the future. The technology that we're on right now may not be the technology that we stay on forever, particularly with the growth plans that we have. But for now, it's serving us quite well.
Any other questions? Right. Susan, would you like to share a piece of poetry with us? I know that you are a poet, and I also know that you're going to be teaching a course in haiku. So now that I know these things about you, I know I want to hear your words.
I am, although I'm not going to read haiku today. I thought I'd read something that was a little more emotional. And so let me share the titles with you. I have Picking Scabs. These were curated pieces of poetry, Picking Scabs, and one is called Body Parts, about parts. I'm a cancer survivor. What do you think? What are you feeling?
What's everybody want to hear? I want to hear the Picking Scabs. I've heard it before.
Yeah, this was a curated one. This was a lot of fun. Okay. When I was smaller, I would strap metal plates with wheels onto my dusty old shoes, go outside and skate fast as possible on those uneven sidewalks, concrete slabs bent, heaving, uphill, downhill, uneven, shifting rivers of cracks. I would fall into the rivers. The wheels would get caught in their current. And I would tumble, knees falling onto the rocky pitted surface of their banks. Scarred kneecaps were my badge of freedom. Scabs so thick, they mirrored those river cracks like Narcissus imagining himself. I'd pick them off. The grown-ups never stopped yelling at me. Stop it! You'll get scars. They won't heal. But I knew deeply, even then, no scab could cover up the scars already formed inside. And these scabs formed, picked, bled, reformed, repicked, bled, hardened, thickened, reminded me that freedom came from falling and healing came from bleeding. And being scarless was the ultimate impossibility.
Beautiful. It makes me want to cry. I love it.
Thank you.
Susan, it was beautiful. Your imagery is magnificent. I can
Thank you.
see it all.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
And I could feel it all.
Yes.
Thanks for
Beautiful.
sharing that.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful. Jill, I know I met you through some groups, mostly through Facebook. Can you tell us about your group on Facebook and some of those that have helped you?
I don't have a group. I do have a Facebook page. I'll just mention it briefly and then talk about some of my favorite groups.
Okay.
Mine is called You Are the Poem, and you can find it on Facebook and on Instagram. And I try to keep an ever-changing collection of poems. Also, projects of friends, and sometimes things that simply catch my eye, intrigue me, and I write to the poet and say, I saw this, may I please share it? And it's nice because it's a great way to build your circle that we all need. And it's wonderful. So I like the fact that, no, it's not just my work. It changes all the time. It's updated as regularly as I'm able to. I'm kind of dealing with some serious health issues right now, but I do make every effort to keep up with it. I also am a mentor, as Lisa mentioned, to an incredible, amazing young lady. She is only 13. She has co-authored 3 books and is working on her 4th. This one she's doing herself. It is a joy that I could not have ever imagined. I call her my precious girl. She's from Nigeria. Her name is Elizabeth. We have these long video chats, and it's wonderful. I know her family. She comes by her talent literally through the veins of her father's side of the family. Her father is a very gifted poet. His mother, his wife, her mother, her aunts and uncles, and when they get together for holidays, it's reminiscent of well before television, and even maybe in this country, in the US, before radio, when people got together and didn't have tablets and didn't have electronics, and simply shared their stories and the poems within her family. As I've gotten to know her, I know where they're coming from. And she recently wrote a piece that I'm very proud of, because she wrote it about our president. She researched Joe Biden, and when you live in Delaware, everybody knows it's Joe. That's who we're talking about. But I will, out of respect, refer to him as President Biden. But she wrote a poem talking about how amazing a man, a humanitarian. She did not focus on his political career. She talked about his sacrifices. We had long conversations about it. She recorded it. It is, I hope, going to be a beautiful video on her YouTube channel, and I'm excited that I was able to help her with that. We met through an anthology called Sensibility. That was a major book, major Amazon bestseller, put together 80 different poets from over 84 poets from, I don't even remember how many countries. And I was asked to write the back cover blurb. That was prose. It wasn't poetry. I was scared out of my mind. I felt that the editor who published it was really taking a chance. Well, it worked. The trailer was magnificent, and it's how I met Lizzie, and it's how I met so many other poet friends, and they call them in other countries poetesses and poets and sisters and brothers. And it has been a dream come true to be a part of a global family of poets from every corner of Mother Earth and at every stage of their growth. And Passion of Poetry is one of my favorite groups. I encourage you all to check it out. Another one is called PLI, Peace, Love, Inkers. And I am completely in awe of its 21-year-old founder, Adrian from the Philippines. He is a gifted poet. He always is thinking in terms of our family, because that's what we are. He's doing his first group anthology, which I'm very excited to be a part of. But that group and Passion of Poetry, and I do belong to a slew of other groups, but I would say that Passion of Poetry, Peace, Love, Inkers, and a very special, small, again, family group led by our founder. His name is Vince Alexis. I consider him a dear brother, and the group is called Poets Corner. And being one of the early members, I'm honored to be able to invite each and every one of you to join us in our Poets Corner family. Peace, Love, Inkers, Poets Corner, and Passion of Poetry. Those are the ones that have brought me the greatest joy. They really made a special effort to welcome Lizzie and her dad, but especially to highlight Lizzie. And that meant the world to me. So I hope I've answered your question about the groups. There are many other groups, and I'll be happy to share them at another time, but I don't want to talk over my limit.
That's okay. Thank you. Now, and
You're
we met
welcome.
through Passion of Poetry. That's how we connected.
Yes.
I don't know how I even stumbled into it. I think through a common friend or something, but you know, I really love
Yes.
the group. It's so mixed culturally, and I love that. It's a huge group.
It
Dan, did you have your
started
hand up?
out quite small. Less than 9 months ago, Annette was looking at reaching 400. Now they are close to 6,000 members.
Wow.
And that is without affiliation of anyone else, just well well-planned events, open mics hosted by Lisa on a monthly basis, and people flock to this group, and more moderators and administrators, and behind everything is my dearest friend, Annette Tarpley, who, if you spend any time in the literary world on Facebook, you will meet Annette Tarpley. She is an amazing poet. She is very prolific. She has written, co-authored a book, working on another, and her first book, Poetry Potpourri, I wrote the first review for. So she is extremely talented and able to translate to people from all over the world many diverse experiences. And one of my very favorite poems of hers is called My Words. And basically what she's saying is, you don't know me. I'm going to tell you all kinds of things. I'm going to write about all kinds of things. But you don't know me inside. You know who I present myself to be. And I love that, absolutely, because it may feel, and that's true about my work as well, it may feel extremely personal, but I think that's the poet's trick, to bring our reader in right away from that first sentence, in that first verse, create that bond and bring them into your story. And a first person narrator's voice welcomes them into whatever story you're telling. And Annette is one of the most talented poets I've ever known. She's also my closest friend in the world.
Thank you, Jill. Dan, you had a question?
Yes, first of all, thank you, Jill and Susan. This feels like a poetic gold mine. So
Oh,
great
thanks,
information.
Anne.
Thank you. I was going to ask about Lizzie's YouTube channel. Is that information available?
Lizzie doesn't have a YouTube channel yet.
Okay.
What we're doing is on Sparrow poetry videos, they produce them. You do the audio file or have someone narrate for you. Lizzie loves to narrate her poems and her dad's. Once you've had 3 poems produced by Sparrow Publications, it's a platform on YouTube, so it's an alternative to traditional publishing.
Okay.
It's just one more way to reach a different, broader audience. So once Lizzie has her first 3 Sparrow videos,
Yes.
then she has her own playlist. I have a playlist because I have about a dozen or so sparrow videos, and they are marvelous to work with. They're based in Sri Lanka, and during election week in the States, they were rooting for President Biden elect, and they were hoping. And I had written a poem called Let Peace In. My husband had produced it. We had a song made from the poem, and that was the one that they stopped everything and worked on all the tiny detail images and created this amazing sparrow video for my playlist. And it was a huge hit, and it was played even in the campaign headquarters here in Delaware that I'm aware of.
Wow.
Yeah,
What's
so all
the
you
fee
have
for,
to do,
is there a fee associated with Sparrow?
the first year, there was no fee whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as a courtesy, if it's your first one and you're interested, record a poem and I'll write to them. And as a courtesy, they will not charge you as a courtesy to me. After that, it's a nominal fee of
Okay.
no more than $20.
Okay.
It's well
Thank you.
worth the money.
They do a great job. They really do.
Thank
They
They
you.
really do.
the video with
Yes.
everything.
Very
Excellent.
detailed, beautiful background. They take their time. They're a marvelous team. The editor, they all work together, and what they end up with is something that you're very proud. So
Great.
once you have 3, you've got your own playlist on YouTube.
Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome, Zan.
Jill, you had a poem that you'd like to share?
I'd be glad to. Okay. This poem has a great backstory. It is a true story, and the basis of it is a very unlikely correspondence, real, not email, snail mail, between 2 people who never meet. And this poem is in fact true, and I included excerpts and snippets from over 800 exchanged letters. So this poem is called Trading Wishes, and the idea behind it, after I do my first book, which is a coffee table book coming out in August, I will be working with my mentor on this poetry novel, if you will, based on the idea of this poem. So, Trading Wishes. It was winter. The only posies to be found had been forced into bloom in some distant hothouse that turned them into hybrids and stole their scent away. I wrote you a letter proposing a porch swing to share, and hours upon hours of unhurried conversation. Do you remember? Finally, spring has arrived. The flowers on my bedside table are luscious, sun-drenched yellow tulips, and the streets beneath my windows are ablaze with magnificent blooms. As far back as I remember, Once I had my longed-for license to drive in one hand and the keys to my very own sleek automobile in the other, I would celebrate spring's arrival with a long drive to nowhere in particular, cruising with the top down and the radio turned up loud. Springtime calls to another lucky girl, my sweet Allegra Belle, behind the wheel of my cherished candy apple car. And I believe that the time has come to trade in my porch swing wish with you for a drive to nowhere in particular. Perhaps a picnic, yummy things to eat, fried chicken, blackberry cobbler, mangoes so perfectly ripe that the juice drips down our chins, and endless pitchers of Bellinis made with Veuve Clicquot champagne. You will drive. We can talk about poems, books, music, our separate histories, the gift and the blessing of our beautiful, unlikely friendship, cooking from the heart, and how we honor those very special storytellers, for they were our earliest muses. Hours will pass unnoticed. Whispers of wishes will come to settle in our hearts and minds, and we will scribble the words of friendship and connection on the canvas of each other's souls. Though it is just a wish whispered into the wind, I know that you will pick it up, dust it off, and never forget the girl who wished you into it. Though we may never share a porch swing, take that leisurely drive on hidden roads, swig the finest of champagnes, or make angels in the snow. I celebrate the gift of our enduring friendship. There will be a cloudless azure sky, a reason for joy, and on that glorious spring afternoon, it will indeed be enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank
So
you.
much. Barbara. Barbara's one of my big cheerleaders. She comes on my Facebook page all the time and says nice things to make me feel better. So thank you, Barbara, so much for your
Always.
support. And we met through the anthology with Arlene. We did a poetry reading of
Yeah.
some of the different ones that were in the anthology.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a bit about your experience with different writers groups and what has helped you and supported you?
So I'm so enthralled with my colleagues here. I have a little bit of a different story in that I'm coming out of it now, but I've been in a transition where I lived in New York City for many years, and I was accepted to the West Side Y Poetry Workshop group, and I studied down at the New School, and it's where I met my mentor, Colette Inez, who was a Guggenheim recipient, Hunter Hall of Fame, and published about 13 or 15 collections of poetry. And we lost her a few years ago to cancer, and she was a great, she was my muse, really. So 4.5 years ago, I decided to leave Manhattan and live full time here at the beach, Long Beach Island. Well, I gave up a lot of my poetry groups, really, because they were in Manhattan. And what I did join a few groups down here. I taught poetry the summer before last at the Art Foundation here. I had a wonderful experience with this gentleman who wrote some really beautiful poetry. He was a retired attorney, and he was in the beginning stages of dementia. And in class, he brought a poem that he'd never showed to anybody, including his wife, and it was about his mother. And the reason I'm telling you this is because he felt that reading my poetry and my reading my poetry aloud and the class and so forth, the vibes gave him the wherewithal to complete the poem and share it, even with the group, but also with his wife. And it was about his mother, and it was just quite a moving experience for me. I don't consider myself to be a poetry teacher. I'm more of a facilitator. So what I did want to do, and then of course last year the pandemic hit and everything got shut down, but I was able to connect with Arlene, and my work was published in What It Is to Be a Woman, as was Lisa's. And then, I met Lisa, and I'm so proud to be in Heartbeats. I'm telling everybody about Heartbeats. I share it all over Facebook. And I'm going to be sending out the hard copies to some people this week. A friend of mine in England, I sent one to him through Amazon, and I just love the idea of Heartbeats, especially now as we're coming out of this pandemic. I think people need inspiration. They crave inspiration. And what we can do as writers and artists and poets is share our gifts with whoever wants to listen. But certainly, by the fact, this is just my personal opinion, that we've been given a gift, I think we have an obligation to work with it and share it, and be mindful and grateful that we have it. So that's where I am, and I'm really getting a lot out of just publishing in anthologies. I did have a small press, Lisa mentioned, where I published other writers. I published 4 of my own collections, but I also published other writers as well. And that was, again, just lost one of them a couple of months ago. His name was Jack Egan. His was an autobiography. He was a Roman Catholic priest that got defrocked and kicked out. It was quite a story, but he was very close to the Berrigan brothers, if you remember them, during the 60s and so forth. And anyway, he passed away a couple of months ago. He was a great influence on my life as well. So I'm very grateful that I've had these people who have been mentors to me and who loved me and supported me. And it's, I think all of us as writers, we're out there and we're putting ourselves out there, and we need to have people around us who are sensitive to what it, even if you have a piece of poetry that is, I call it marinating in its own juices. It's not really finished yet, but that's okay. So it's there, and you want to share where you are in the process of writing the work. I know my colleagues here are shaking their heads, yes, because we all need that support. So that's my story. It's a little shorter than the others, but as I say, I'm so excited about Heartbeats. I think the idea of it is so timely and so wonderful. And I hope you sell 1 million copies, Liz. I really do. 1 million, no less.
Go out there on that soapbox and sell those 1 million copies.
I'm good. It's my background actually in my real world was I worked for Macy's for many years. I was executive at Macy's, selling and marketing and so. But this is gives me a lot more pleasure writing poetry, living at the beach. I've paid my dues to society, I think. So,
Barbara,
but
I guess it's through your connection that you learn about these anthologies. Is there a particular group or just people you happen to have met in the poetic world?
no, well, the first person was somebody I met here, who just on the island, who was from the Long Beach Island, but she now lives in Colorado. Her name is Geody Wind, and through Geody, I met her. She's published my work as well, and through her I met Arlene, and then through Arlene I met you. So it's all been networking, really. It's all been networking, and I'm lucky to have fallen into groups that are so supportive and good at what they do. So you get good criticism. You know, nobody's looking to just be patted on the head and say everything's wonderful. No, we want good criticism because we all want to be the best that we can. And so I'm very lucky between Geody and Arlene and Lisa to be belonging to groups that really help me bring out the best. Now, I'll be in one that Arlene is publishing. It's called Jane Austen. It's supporting the work of Jane Austen. Thoughts and Opinions is the title. And it was one of the more difficult assignments I've had in my little writing life, because she just said, Jane Austen, go do your thing. There wasn't anything specific. And so what I wanted to do, rather than just write poems about her characters, I wanted to get into the psyche of Jane Austen. And it was an ambitious endeavor on my part. And I thought, oh, I'll just do it in the winter because we're still in the lockdown and it's winter at a beach and everything's closed and I'll have time. But boy, it took a lot of time. So I did a lot of research on her life and what made her tick as a writer. And of course, we all read Pride and Prejudice and all these when we were in college, but doing the research on her life really helped me get into what made her tick as a writer. And so I wrote some poetry that it took me a while to do it. It was work, and I had to really work at it and revise it and work at it and revise it. And that's the craft of poetry, right? You write it and then you revise it, and that's the craft. So I did that, and she took two of them, and that anthology will be coming out, I think she said, the end of June. So it's exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing what the other people in the book have come up with regarding Jane Austen. So, and then I guess there'll be some others. I don't know, but right now I'm pushing Heartbeats, and Jane Austen will be coming out in June, and we'll see what Lisa's doing in the fall, and it's all very exciting. So,
Thank you.
yeah. So,
Does anybody have questions for Barbara? Anne's turned her mic on.
I turned it on because I like to say I was too many heartbeats away from meeting Lisa to be able to submit something
oh yeah,
for that anthology. But I think it's going to be great.
I do too. Yeah, I do
Thank
too.
you.
Good idea.
Now, Barbara, I know you have a poem for us.
That's what I was going to ask.
And I was looking at, I was just going to say, I was looking at the three that Lisa took for my submission to Heartbeats, and I couldn't decide which one to read, but I'm going to read this one. It's a love poem, and it's called A Winter Day. Palette of midday, pomegranates last scent, remnants of velvet, icicles dripping slowly, crash on the porch, recalling our days, simple in summer, sips of Chardonnay, circles of Venus, roses climbing through mist. My voice whispers, let me stroke your cheek. Geraniums speak of fuchsia and red. Wind chimes sing, my bed is warm. I hear the wind, Is it your voice?
Nice.
Thank you.
Heartbeats.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
There is one group in particular that I'm pretty religious about signing up for. It's Jena Schwartz has a couple times a year called Poetry Dive. And it's a private Facebook group and where you can write your poetry, share your poetry in the raw version.
Oh,
So, warts and all. It's because it's private, it's not considered published out there in the world.
right.
And it gives you a kind of a safe place to put your works out there. And I have to say, anything that I've written in that group and have polished and sent on has been published. And I think it's the writing raw that does it. So I want to do some more writing raw poetry groups.
Yeah, I've made mention of this to you many times. That's the one thing I really do. One of the things that I really miss about New York City because there was so much of that and it was readily available to me and so forth. I don't have as much here on Long Beach Island, but I do have it through you because I have it virtually. So I would love to participate in that.
That would take the burden off of my beloved husband, who's forced to listen to every revision and every edited change. And I'm like, do you see the difference? Well, actually, not really, sweetie, but if you do, so I think he would be so grateful, and so would I.
That's what family's for, right?
Exactly.
Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add or know of any other groups that are out there that they would like to share?
Lisa, this is Stephanie Bass. I know you only briefly through Triangle Area of Freelancers, Association of Freelancers, but I wanted to mention that group to these folks because I have found it to be a great resource. And how this is related to how I'm in your poetry group is through Lisa. I've become increasingly interested in trying to write poetry. I haven't really delved into it yet, but TAF, we call it TAF, is a very nominal fee to join, $20. You get a page on their website, an author page, which is a good place to list your offerings if you are for hire, and or just as a reference. And the members are so helpful. There's a lot of really great information shared about the business side of being a writer. And it's writers of all kinds. So some of you all have mentioned various names of folks who are part of that group. And I just want to mention it in case anyone was not aware of it.
Thank you so much for bringing up about TAF. I'm actually their social media person. Myself and Christy Stevenson keep people kind of aware of, what's happening with TAF. And I will say this, we're trying to get a well-known poet to come to speak to one of our TAF talks. And TAF talks is exclusive to TAF members. And we bring in some of the most fascinating speakers and professionals that have been in the publishing industry for years. But I can't name any names, but they're trying to get this poet that I recommended to come and speak. So I'm hoping that we get them. And I have a couple of them out there. So I'm going to be front row center to that. And we will continue to do things through Zoom. Also, I always mention that I'm an editor for Fine Lines, and it's finelines.org. They have a summer camp coming up, and I'll put a link into the YouTube because I don't have the link in front of me right now, but I actually created something on my blog. Fine Lines Summer Camp is in June. It starts with 5th graders all through adults. There's 3 different groups. There's 2 different underage group and then an adult group. I'm going to do my best to be participating in that. And so I will be posting a link about that, but it's a week of writing and it's all going to be online. So it's from near where I used to live, near Omaha, Nebraska, over across the river in Iowa. And all the time I was over that way, I never participated in anything. So I come all the way to North Carolina and I start writing with this group from Nebraska. But anyway, I highly recommend Fine Lines because they give you feedback, they give you encouragement. It's like nothing else I've ever experienced, and it makes me proud to be a part of the group. Does anybody else have anything they want to say? I want to thank so much for Susan and Jill and Barbara for presenting tonight, for reading your beautiful poetry as well.
Thank you,
Everybody
everyone.
Thank
for
you.
participating.
Wonderful hearing all your voices. Really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and y'all have a wonderful night.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Do we leave?